since sometimes the holidays can be a little bit stressful and doesn't always bring out everybody's best behavior, even though everybody's having a good time, it's we're going to focus tonight on behavior management tips. So I think it's going to be really fun. So Mark, I see that you've joined us. How are things?
Things are great, Chris. We're a little cold here in Wisconsin. I think I woke up today to -10, but winter's here. Other than that, everything is wonderful.
That's awesome. You definitely will have a colder winter than I will here in New Hampshire. I mean, -10. We'll be lucky if that happens once, or maybe unlucky, as the case may be.
Right.
No, you definitely set some records up there in Wisconsin. So, hey,
Yeah.
listen, everybody, we'll go ahead and get started. We want to welcome everybody to this WISER Cracks webinar. Mark and I have had a blast this fall presenting a monthly webinar on a different theme. And since I mentioned Mark a couple of times and haven't let him introduce himself, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Everything Summer Camp.
Thanks, Chris. My name is Mark Sigloff. I am with Everything Summer Camp. We are a one-stop shop for camp. If your camp tells you to bring it, we have it. But we also know that it's not enough for us to just sell you stuff. And so we really strive to make sure that getting ready for camp is easy and it's fun. We really want to make sure that campers and their parents get the most out of the summer camp experience. So Chris, can you tell everybody a little bit about Expert Online Training?
Yeah, absolutely. Now that I've adjusted my webcam a little bit. And listen, shout out to George, who just joined us from Mexico, to Connie, who's across the country. So we're excited that so many people have joined us. My name is Chris Thurber. I am a psychologist by training, and I'm the co-founder of Expert Online Training, which you see on the banner behind me. Expert Online Training is a library of video training modules. Expertonlinetraining.com is the website that hosts these videos. We have a faculty of 23 talented folks, some psychologists, some teachers, some camp directors, some attorneys. Everyone has an expertise that they've contributed to EOT, and it's important for parents to know about Expert Online Training. Directors know that they don't have enough time ever in their customized on-site training to cover everything that needs to be trained prior to the arrival of your son or your daughter. So what Expert Online Training does is complement the on-site training that is provided by camps by allowing staff, most of whom are college age or high school age students, to do some self-directed learning. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to make the videos. We've gotten great feedback from staff in the 8 years that we've been around. All right, so we'll go ahead and begin tonight's presentation with a little video, and I'll screen share here, and hope that you enjoy this clip from Star Wars, certainly one of my favorite films, but this is a little bit of a riff on Star Wars and the enthusiasm that has been generated over the years since the first episode came out in 1976. The ad that I'm going to play for you here was a Volkswagen ad that aired during the 2012 Super Bowl here in the US. It's just a minute long. I'm going to play it for you. You'll get a kick out of it if you've never seen it before. And then I want to tell you why I think it's an interesting piece and what it says about child development. So one of the things that I that I absolutely love about this is the fantasy that I think all people have, certainly all kids, that you can control something. It's cool to think about. I think it's one of the reasons those movies were so popular. But I don't want to go too deep into the cultural commentary. I just want to remind everybody that this feeling of agency, of wanting to control the situation, is a really normal human feeling. And it plays out in different ways, but sometimes that urge for control and that desire to want to influence a situation, in this case, it's really cute. The kid is, trying to move his doll. He's trying to do something to the washing machine. He's, trying to do something to his dog and to his sandwich. And eventually, the dad uses the auto remote starter to, start the car and give him the sense that he has this power. But what I think is beautiful there is it captures something which is genuinely human. And I want all parents and camp professionals and everybody else who's joining us tonight to be thinking about misbehavior in a different way. Obviously, we want out of ourselves the best behavior as parents, as youth leaders, and we work really hard to sort of extract the best behavior from the young people with whom we work, whether those are our biological children or stepchildren or cousins or the young people we work with at camps. And if you understand that a lot of misbehavior is driven by a desire to want to influence the situation and a frustration that it's not turning out exactly how you want, I think it makes you a much more patient parent. It makes you a much more patient youth leader. So let me share with you what I think are some sort of truisms of human nature. 4 secrets about behavior. First, deep down, I think all young people want to be kind, to have this sense of agency that I was speaking about a minute ago, and to connect. So think about some of the misbehaviors that you commonly see as a thwarted effort to connect. I think, in fact, a lot of bullying, which Mark and I talked about in one of our first webinars for the WISER Crack series, a lot of bullying is a misguided attempt at social connection. And certainly, as I said, a lot of misbehavior is a sense that you've lost control or somebody else has the control that you would like. I also want us all to remember that as parents, it's true that nobody can completely control another person's behavior, and we're sometimes pretty hard on ourselves when our kids are not behaving the way we want. Again, could be the kids that you're leading in your group or cabin at day camp or overnight camp. It might be your own children or relatives or your own kids, friends, whatever it is. There are certainly limits on what we can do. We can influence, we can guide, we can set a good example, but we can't totally control. Next, remember that preventing misbehavior is always easier than intervening after misbehavior. So an essential component of strong leadership and good parenting and great outdoor education is setting up a situation so that misbehavior is less likely to occur. And I think the classic parenting example is, you're about to go into a store and there are going to be some toys or candy or things that your kids are going to want. And so you say to them, listen, we're going to have dinner in an hour, so you might see some snacks in this store that you would like, but daddy's not going to buy you any because we're going to have a nice dinner in a little bit. And that minimizes an argument, the chances of an argument occurring in the store. And finally, I'll talk about this near the end of the webinar, empathy is superior to entropy, or just kind of completely losing your cool when you're working to manage a young person's behavior. So if there's one best Jedi mind trick, one way to tap into the emotional sort of what's going on emotionally with the young person, it's empathy. It's the best way to diffuse an emotional bomb. It's the best way to forge a connection, as Mark and I spoke about in Cracking Kids Secret Code, another wonderful WISER Cracks webinar that we enjoyed. So I want you to keep these 4 secrets about behavior in mind as we go forward. All right, so now I'd like everyone to put their fingers on the keyboard, put down whatever else you were doing, and let's see what you can enter into the chat window here. It's time for True Confessions. I want to know what has been the most challenging misbehavior of your parenting career. And here I'm talking about kids' behavior. And if you're not a parent, talk about the most challenging child behavior that you have witnessed in your professional career, or yeah, it could be a niece or a nephew, but talk about what has been the most challenging thing you've encountered, kind of in your adult, world. And Mark, maybe I can ask you to chime in and just tell us for you, because you're a parent too. What's been some of the biggest challenges for you?
You know, I hope she doesn't watch this. She probably wouldn't like it if I edited her out, but my 16-year-old Maddie, we cannot take anything away from her and have it have impact. You'll say, okay, Maddie, you lost your cell phone because you didn't listen in regards to this. And she'll go, here's my cell phone, here's my iPod, do you want the TV? What else can I give you? You can have it all. So she does this thing where nothing affects her.
That's a huge, I don't think I've ever heard that one before. That's a massive challenge to think that.
Yeah, she'll just gut her whole bedroom and go, here, take it. You can't hurt me.
Well, the I remember the story that my mom used to tell about what she would do with her dad, so my grandpa, when he would get angry at her and lose his temper, and she would look at him and she would say, you wouldn't do that if mommy were here, or the trump card, you wouldn't do that if Jesus were here, and not even a very religious family, but it just sort of made him really feel challenged as a parent. And I think we've all had moments like that. So a few shares there in the chat window, and we'll come back to that in a moment, but let's move on to what I think are some interesting techniques here. And I'm going to use Star Wars as a reference. I'll do one, and then Mark, I know that you have some raffles planned, so we're going to let people have a chance to win some cool stuff. Let me move back to one of the points that I wanted to make here, which is there are also tremendous successes for all of the challenges that exist. I'd love for everyone to also think about all the many things that they've done to comfort kids in times of distress, to provide them with inspiration, to assist them in coping with something challenging socially, academically. In the other room, you might be able to hear my son practicing violin right now. Sometimes that's a challenge that my wife especially is gifted at shepherding them through. So I would never want to focus completely on what we sometimes feel are challenges or even shortcomings as parents, without reminding everybody that, wow, there are times when all parents really shine. All right, then, I'll share this, and then I think it would be a good time for a raffle. We all want to be better parents, but I feel like, boy, it's presumptuous of anyone to say, here's some ideas for parenting, without recognizing that, gosh, life is exhausting. It's not just parenting, but we're all pulled in a lot of different directions at home, for some of us at work, our extended families, just life in general is exhausting. And I often hear from people that technology is fun and interesting, but in a lot of ways it's made us busier. Obviously, another principle that I think is going to be sort of widely accepted by the webinar audience here is that kids are tremendously unpredictable. So you think you've learned a technique, and like Mark was saying, you're like, oh, okay, we're going to remove a privilege, and kids do completely unpredictable things, like say, okay, fine, what else do you want to take away, right? Next, very few of us have time to read parenting books. I've got a shelf full, and I've read a good chunk of them, particularly right after graduate school, even before I had kids. But I just, I think that it can be intimidating as a parent to walk into a bookstore or look on Amazon and see thousands of titles and think I could never even make it through one of these. most of us are just trying to wing it, right? We're improvising and we're making it up as we go along. You know, you need a fishing license and a driver's license, but you don't need a license to have kids. And perhaps that's as it should be. It doesn't come often with, you know, a kind of training that we get as we go along. Fortunately, you know, we have each other to learn from, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in the webinar. And then I think it's true that very few of us want to admit our shortcomings, but that has some implications for becoming a better parent as well. So I've shared with you what I think are 4 truths about kids and their behavior, 5 truths about parenting and maybe just life on Earth. And that's a great setup for the techniques that I'm going to share with you. But I want to switch over to Mark and let him do a live raffle, which is really cool. You heard him talk about the awesome gear that Everything Summer Camp sells, and in the case of their Foot Lockers, actually manufactures. Foot Lockers, by the way, that my boys have used for years because they're so incredibly durable. But you got some other stuff to give away tonight, Mark, so I'll let you take over.
All right, thanks, Chris. So tonight we're going to give away a Keep Calm and Camp On sweatshirt. Given the weather that's coming towards all of us, we have a nice wool blanket to give away. We're going to give away this trunk, and we're also going to give away a $50 and a $100 gift card. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And here's a list of everybody that was registered for the webinar tonight. We're going to shuffle that up, and we're going to draw some names. So the first drawing is going to be for our Keep Calm and Camp On sweatshirt, and the winner of the sweatshirt is Cindy. Congratulations, Cindy. And next up, we're going to do the wool blanket. The winner of the blanket is Michelle Lafferty. Congratulations, Michelle. All right, next up, we'll do the $50 gift card. $50 gift card goes to Ale. Congratulations, Ale. All right, so we're going to get back to Chris, and then we'll come back a little while later. We'll draw for the $100 gift card and the camp trunk.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mark. You know, this is the 3rd webinar that you and I have done together this fall, and I have to say I haven't won anything yet. So I think the whole thing is, you know, a little suspicious, but no, like, it's really cool, and it's fun to. I mean, it's the best part of the webinar. So look, let's go back to now talking about some really practical techniques. And whether you're a Star Wars fan or not, I think you'll enjoy what I've put together. It's probably things that you haven't seen before, just because I'm taking a different tack here. If it's true that life is exhausting, I think one of the most important things that you can do is take care of yourself. Now, you can be like Darth Vader here, and you can do some meditating. There's wonderful research by Herb Benson at Harvard University suggesting that some quiet time to reflect, to meditate, a little bit of positive imagery, slowing your breathing, just 2 or 3 times a week for 10 or 15 minutes has a tremendous effect on people's health and wellness. Lower blood pressure, lower resting heart rate, increased sense of happiness and well-being, lower levels of depression and anxiety, and here's the kicker, greater longevity. So I would make sure that you find a way to achieve some kind of peace, even if that is 10 minutes. And honestly, as busy as life is, that could be while you're in the carpool lane, kind of like waiting for your kids, or it could be the 10 minutes after dinner when they've gone upstairs to start their homework or brush their teeth, or you don't need hours and hours to take a bubble bath. It's just important that you take 10, 15 minutes a day and just breathe. So do keep that in mind. If it's true that kids are unpredictable, and this is one of my favorite scenes from episode 4, the first Star Wars movie to come out, that's the inspiration for the title of this webinar. You know, here you see Luke and Obi-Wan, of course with C-3PO and R2-D2, getting stopped by stormtroopers who are asking them, basically, you know, they're looking for Luke and the speeder and so forth, and Obi-Wan famously waves his hand and says, you know, these aren't the droids you're looking for. By the way, the speeder's for sale if you want to buy it. and you can just move along. And of course, because the stormtroopers are supposedly simple-minded, they usher the speeder and its passengers on through the safety check there, or through the security check. So what's the implication here for parenting? You got to kind of make it up as you go along, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think some of the most sort of powerful parenting I've ever done, when I'm at an impasse, and look, I have a PhD in child psychology. I reach impasses every day with my kids. They aren't major ones, but I'll often ask them, what do you think we should do right now? Or, what are our options? Now, my kids are 12 and 14, but I started asking them that question when they were 4 and 6. So I would encourage all of you to do that as well. If it's true that we don't have a lot of time, and I think it is true, regardless of your profession or your geographic location, whatever it is, because we have so little time, I think one of the most important things we do is have a mentor. And that you don't have to make it super formal and say to someone whose parenting skills you admire, will you be my mentor? Can we meet twice a week or something? I think you got to expose yourself to other parents with different styles, and in a subtle and informal way. If you have time to read parenting books, that's great, and there are a lot of good ones out there. And if you don't, there's a lot of live parenting going on around us all the time, and you can take advantage of that just by watching your friends parent, or by if you have the time to have a cup of coffee with them, or talk to them a little bit on the phone, or even email back and forth. But I like the real-time face-to-face contact. Tell them what are some of the things that have challenged you. What would you do in this situation? And whether you really consider them a mentor or not, I think that's really, really important. I'll talk about this slide, and then I'll turn things over to Mark for another minute or two. Because most of us are winging it, I think that we need to respect the fact that there is a lot of creativity that's part of parenting. And, in this scene in Star Wars, Luke and Han have quote unquote rescued Princess Leia, and she's confronting Han at this point and saying, so you got in here, didn't you have a plan for getting us out of here? And he famously asks her, maybe you'd like it back in your cell, Your Highness. And then she actually improvises a plan by blasting a hole, and that leads them to the trash compactor and so forth. You benefit from debriefing with your kids. If you have a partner or spouse, with them. If you have a mentor, with that person. Here's what I did in this situation. What could I have done differently? And it's less of a Jedi mind trick and more of an analytical technique. But I think it's so important that every big achievement, every big mistake that we make as parents, we go back through. So I've got a couple of other secrets to share, other tips and tricks. I want to turn things over to Mark again, because you got something else fun to do.
Yeah, we're going to give away a $100 gift card next. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. All right, can you see?
Hey, that looks like me. I don't know.
It looks just like you. What's going on? All right, let's try that again. Are we sharing? Good. Okay. All right. Let's try this again. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and give away the $100 gift card, and that's going to Renette. Congratulations, Renette. Do want to mention that we are still shipping in time for Hanukkah or Christmas. So I believe Friday is our cutoff where we can get it anywhere in the country. After that, plenty of people will still be able to shop until Monday or Tuesday, but the deadline is approaching. So if you plan on ordering from us for Christmas or Hanukkah, now is the time to get your orders in. And Renette, you have $100 to play with. So now our last prize, our Happy Camper Camp Trunk, is going to go to Kara Milano. Congratulations, Kara. Like Chris said, these are amazing trunks. You're going to be thrilled with the product.
That's really cool. I wasn't sure that a trunk was in the offing tonight, but best trunks on the planet, and they get used as card tables, they get used as step stools, they get banged around a lot. And one thing that Mark is too modest to mention, but if anything ever does get dinged up and you need a replacement part or piece, Everything Summer Camp's going to ship that to you. And that's a fantastic way to stand behind their product as well as on top of their product. All right, so we're gonna go back to a couple more slides here. And for those of you who only have half an hour, we'll wrap up at that mark. For those of you who can stick around for a little Q&A, that's gonna be fun, and we'll do that via the chat window. And by the way, if for some reason, the chat window is not activated for you or having a little trouble with it, don't worry about it at all. You can always email us, and I'll put my email on the last slide. And that way, if there is a follow-up question that you want, we're happy to respond. All right, so back to the slides here for a sec. All right, so I talked about winging it, and now let's talk about admitting mistakes. Part of this improvisation that we end up doing is sometimes things don't work out the way we want, or we do something impulsively like Han Solo is doing here, trying to pretend that he's a stormtrooper, but unable to give the authorization code. He then sort of, as he's wont to do, blasts the control panel here and has to warn his friends, like, we're gonna have company. Here come, some more people because I did this. And, it's hard to admit that we've made a mistake as a parent, even a small mistake. You're late for a pickup, or you say something that you instantly regret. I think the most important thing you can do as a parent in front of your kids, and this really is a kind of Jedi mind trick, as it were, because you do something unexpected and really change their thinking. It's fine to say, whoops, I made a mistake there. I was angry, or I said this, or, I apologize that this happened. And you're setting a great example for your kids when you do that, because if they make a mistake, of course, you want them to admit it. You want them to make amends. And by doing that yourself, it's an incredibly powerful way to extract the best behavior from your kids. Now, of course, there are some mistakes that we make as parents that we might not want to share with our kids. But if it's happened to them or in front of them, my guess is that they've noticed it, even if they're really young. So I would encourage you to admit that mistake. It's hard, and yet our fear that kids' respect for us will be diminished is paradoxical, because it actually is enhanced when you say, I think I made a mistake here, and this is what I would do differently. Now, the ultimate Jedi mind trick is diffusing, and I wrote sort of defusing because I'm using this emotional bomb metaphor, but we could also be DIFF, diffusing. The point is, when kids are steamed up, when anybody is really angry or upset or experiencing a strong negative emotion, empathy is the most powerful way to diffuse that emotional bomb. So, quick little story. I, about 5 years ago, was asked by my kids, can we go skiing? So, oh gosh, let's try to think about when a good time to go is. I had a day when it was easy for me to take off of work, and I pulled them out of school. So all three of us were kind of playing hooky, and we went to a nearby ski slope. I live here in New Hampshire, so not too far away. And we were skiing, we were having a good time. The kids took a lesson. And then my younger son, who was about 7 at the time, took a huge wipeout, which, is part of skiing, no matter what age you are. And I skied over to him and, thinking I'd help him put his skis back on. And he said, I hate skiing. I don't ever want to do this. You're a bad father for bringing us skiing. Now, the way that I was feeling like I should respond at the time is to yell back at him and give him a lecture about being ungrateful and tell him that, this cost money and I had to take off of work and he's lucky that I pulled him out of school. And I can really lecture if I get going, but I had a moment there where I paused and realized what he was saying, which I could talk to him about later, was a really angry, impulsive response to a disappointment that he had with his own performance, and wiping out wasn't fun, and he had snow down his jacket. And so what I said was, Sava, it seems to me like right now you're really unhappy with how skiing is going. So the right now time limited it, and we took it away from skiing is awful altogether or it was a bad idea. I made the global statement that he came up with very specific by saying right now. And then the hallmark of empathy is to use a word that describes an emotion. So I used the word unhappy. And he didn't say much in response, but he got calmer. He stopped yelling. We were able to put his skis back on. And with that single sentence, I was able to diffuse the emotional bomb. I didn't respond in that moment to his criticism of me, of the idea, of the sport. I knew that people don't do their clearest thinking when they're really angry or experiencing some other really strong negative emotion. So here's my advice. You want to lead with empathy. Now, there are going to be times when this is too hard to do or it's a safety issue and you can't just provide some empathy. You need to act immediately. And I do understand that. But 9 times out of 10, leading with empathy calms people down. You seem really upset. I can see you're really unhappy. This was really unexpected. You sound really angry. This isn't at all what you wanted. You're not having any fun right now. Say something that you think describes the other person's emotional experience and recognize, as I often say, empathy is not agreement. So I wasn't agreeing with Sava that skiing was terrible or that I was a bad father or it was a bad idea. I was trying to connect with him emotionally, which brought him down out of the rafters. The next Jedi mind trick is to ask, what do you want right now? What do you need? And not only will empathy take kids off balance when they say something nasty to you, like you're a bad father, but when you follow up with this question, what do you want? Or what do you need right now, buddy? They'll be even more off balance. And being cognitively off balance, this is the ultimate Jedi mind trick because you're getting kids to tell you, in a sense, what's the solution to the problem. And what he said was, I think I really need to take a break. And I said, I think that's a great idea. Why don't you put your skis on? We'll do the last quarter of the slope here. And then why don't we go inside and warm up? Now, what I didn't say is, let's go get a hot chocolate. And I don't want to necessarily reward the nasty behavior that I witnessed just yet. But I love asking this question, what do you want right now? What do you need? When my kids are in conflict, I'll often, respond to a complaint. Sava's doing this or Dodge is doing that. Say, okay, what do you want right now? Not what do you want me to do, but what do you want? And kids are able then to think about what generated this unhappy feeling. And ultimately, this is what you're doing is trying to teach, them how to recognize and regulate their own emotions. And then you can use some pure I statements. So when we got back into the lodge and he was well calmed down, and I said, my feelings are hurt and I feel sad. And he said, how come? And I said, back up on the slope there, you said I was a bad father. And he said, well, I was really angry. And so I said, well, so sometimes when you're angry, you say some angry things. And then, of course, he said, I didn't mean it. I love you. Now, I don't want to necessarily give the impression that every single interaction ends up with rainbows and unicorns and love and gumdrops. It doesn't. But please keep these techniques in mind because we don't use them often enough. They are the way to connect with other people. It's the way to leverage your own child's emotional intelligence and create an outcome that is far superior to a temper tantrum or your yelling and saying something that you later regret. I want to just wrap up by reminding you that the word discipline comes from a Latin word disciplina, and that means to teach. It doesn't mean to punish. And so there are some times when punishment is appropriate. That could be a removal of a privilege. That could be an extra work duty. There are different things that we can do, to get kids to sort of think about what they've done by imposing a negative consequence. But the best kind of discipline teaches the positive alternate behavior. So really important conversation that I had with my son before we went back up on the slopes was, when you wipe out, what is maybe a different way to express how you feel? Or, what do you want to do differently? What would make me want to help you more or get your skis back on or whatever it might be? And I urge you all to ask yourself, when you look at your go-to discipline strategies, Are you teaching the positive alternate behavior? And sometimes the answer will be yes, and sometimes the answer will be no. And for the things where you realize there's a lack of teaching, see what you can do to adjust things. All right, so we've reached the end of our 30 minutes, but before you go, I want to tell you about future Wiser Cracks webinars. As you read in the email I sent you, unfortunately, because of some family things, Debbie wasn't able to join us. She had to go to a memorial service in Maryland, and she'll be back in a day or two. But in January, she's planning to do talking to kids about tough topics. And we practiced together. I listened to this webinar. It's awesome. In January, I'm going to be doing summer camp quality, what's not on the website, and give all kinds of tips on how to assess the quality of a summer program. Also in January, Scott Arizala is going to do rules were made to be positive. In February, Steve McGuire is going to do masterful meetings. In March, Sylvia Van Meerten is going to do helping awkward kids fit in. And then we're looking at a couple of other webinars, I'm not a math person, and t-shirts and wife beaters, why kids' language matters. So really cool stuff. And all you need to do is just, look at the emails when I send them, or if you subscribe to the whole series, you always have the option of course, attending or not, depending on your schedule, but we have a lot of cool stuff planned. We do have time for some Q&A before we start that. For those of you who can stick around, I want to turn things back over to Mark for a minute and see what you got going on there in Wisconsin.
Well, thanks, Chris. That's great information, and I'll definitely have I'll be talking to my wife tonight about some of the things that I learned here today. So for those of you who didn't win a prize, you're not completely out of luck. We do have a giveaway that we're going to do. We worked with Chris and John Malinowski are the authors of the Summer Camp Handbook right here. And we were the publisher of the book. And so we got a bunch of these in our warehouse, and we're going to be giving away 25 free copies. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this. And there you go. So if you click the button free to 25 lucky listeners on the side of your screen there, you will end up over on our website. We have you fill out a quick form so that we can get the book in your hands. So if you're interested in owning this book, it's a phenomenal resource for summer camp. Just go ahead and click over to our website, fill out the form, and we'll ship you a free copy.
That's awesome, Mark. It's cool that you guys are doing that. And I will say that the reason John and I wrote the Summer Camp Handbook is we wanted families to have preparatory resource to maximize the joy of the experience. We have a lot of information in there about preventing homesickness. We have a lot of information about finding a camp that matches your son or daughter's interests or abilities. I often get asked, what are the top 5 camps in the country? And I say that's not a question that's answerable. If you know your kid, then you'll be able to find a great camp for them. There are so many different options out there, but we give you a lot of strategies for sifting through the web searches and understanding the quality markers. And of course, that is something, as I said, that I'll be doing a webinar with Mark about in January. And then there is a section of the book that we wrote just for kids, because they need to also prepare for the experience and do some things like a practice sleepover at a friend's house, or help you pack. I think it's a sort of classic mistake that a lot of well-intentioned, loving families make, is the parents will do all the packing for the kids. And what really promotes good adjustment is to have the kids be part of the experience. Remember what I said at the beginning of this webinar, that a sense of agency and having some influence and control over what happens to us in our lives is really important. And when you have that over an experience like summer camp, and you get some say in what kind of camp and where it is and how long to go, and maybe even what to buy, and hopefully you'll do some of that purchasing on everythingsummercamp.com. But it's really about a collaborative experience with parents and kids We want to promote their independence, and at the same time, we want to promote their interdependence. There's a lot of social skill development that happens at summer camp, and you can begin that process by ensuring that there's a connection and a collaboration even in the preparatory stages of the camp experience. So I'm looking at the chat window here, and it seems to me that although we've activated the chat window, people may be having a little bit of a tough time doing their the chat window doesn't seem to be available to everyone. We've got some questions and some comments there, but what we want to do now is switch over to the slides and give you our contact information so that if you do have some follow-up questions, you can send those to us. I also want to let you know that on the website Expert Online Training, we've got a page called Praxis, and you'll find that on the bottom menu where we post a link to the recorded version of this webinar, and we also have some excellent resources in the form of articles and handouts for parents and youth leaders. So we certainly appreciate you joining us this evening. If you want to start gearing up for a wonderful summer, begin your search at everythingsummercamp.com. As Mark said, if it's on the packing list, they've got it, and not haphazardly chosen. It's the highest quality gear that you can get for the purposes of summer camp. Expertonlinetraining.com is the website where you can sample some of the training materials that the young adults who will be caring for your kids this summer use. This is also a wonderful resource for camp directors. So those of you in the audience that own or direct a camp, please visit expertonlinetraining.com and send any questions that you've got about tonight's topic, which is alternative behavior management strategies, or any other parenting questions. Can't promise that I'll be able to answer them all, but my website is drchristhurber.com, and you'll be able to contact me through that website or simply chris@drchristhurber.com. So before I turn things over to Mark, I want to thank everybody here from New Hampshire for joining us for this webinar. I know that some of you are disappointed that Debbie wasn't able to join us, and that you also certainly understand why. It's great that you were flexible, and certainly Mark and I always enjoy jumping online together. Please do look for our announcement about Debbie's webinar, which will happen in early January or mid-January. Mark?
Chris, we do have a question from Dan. He's asking if the recorded webinar is going to be available on the EOT website.
Yes, absolutely. So on the EOT website, if you look at the bottom horizontal menu, one of the options is Praxis, Praxis. And praxis is a word that actually means putting theory into practice, which is what Mark and I try to do in these webinars. And so on the Expert Online Training website, you simply click on Praxis on the bottom horizontal menu, and that will take you to a variety of resources, including a recorded version of tonight's webinar. And feel free to share that with, your camp parents, with your friends, with anyone. We do this for free. We talk about the work that we do, and my passion, Mark's passion, is to share a lot of what we've learned and some of the resources that we have with as many folks as we can, again, to maximize the quality of their kids' experiences.
Yeah, and how soon is that video available, Chris, on the website?
It'll be available, the link will be available tomorrow. And if you go to just Dr. Chris Thurber YouTube channel, it's available almost instantly. Usually what I try to do is trim the very beginning so you don't have to watch the blank screen, for a minute or two, but it'll be up there tonight.
All right, great. Well, thank you, everybody, and we're glad you could join us tonight. We hope to see you at future webinars. Check your email. Like Chris said, we'll let you know when we reschedule the Tougher Topics webinar with Debbie. And yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.